While Doctor Who was nearing its end in 1989, an American producer at Columbia Pictures called Philip Seagull wrote to the BBC inquiring about the possibility of acquiring the rights to a Doctor Who movie. This went under the radar as there had been several approaches about making a movie. Terry Nation and Jerry Davis had offered to take over with backing from American companies, and even Michael Jackson had wanted to make a movie so long as he could star in the lead. However, the movie rights had already been handed to a small inactive company called Coast to Coast in the late 80s. In 1991, Navalna, a Canadian animation company, were approached to make a Doctor Who children's cartoon like the sort you had on Saturday mornings. This would have allowed space battles and scenery that couldn't have been attempted on live action. While some concept art was made, this came to nothing. And there was also an incident in 1991 where the presenter David Burton started driving around in a car claiming to be the next Doctor Who. He's since claimed that he starred in the pilot by an independent company that had been sent to the BBC, though there is no evidence of this claim. Seagull didn't hear back from the BBC until 1991, by which point he was already moving over to Amblin Television, owned by Steven Spielberg. However, Peter Cregan told him that it was still premature to bring back Doctor Who. It was whilst Amblin were touring foreign investors in their shows that Seagull learnt that Alan Yentob was there, visiting the set of Sequest. By chance, he managed to have this in-person conversation with him the same day that Spielberg was around. Between the three of them, the discussion of reviving Doctor Who had begun. And so, going into 1993, there were formal talks between BBC Drama, Amblin Television and Universal Television of an American reboot of the show. In fact, part of this discussion was unknowingly caught on tape while making 30 Years in the TARDIS.
Spielberg found him. Philip. Good, okay.
Fortunately, Seagull managed to talk Leonard Nimoy out of directing scenes for the Coast to Coast production, which would have allowed them to extend their contract, which allowed Universal to get the rights off the BBC. A movie was mooted with a poster drawn up for a feature film called The Last of the Time Lords. It wouldn't be long before word of mouth would get out and rumours flying wild.
Top film director Steven Spielberg has announced he's making a new Doctor Who series. What worries British fans are the rumours of actresses from programmes like Baywatch taking the part of the Doctor's companion.
Doctor Who fans in this country are delighted a new series is being made in the States, but they're very worried about who's going to play the Doctor and who his assistants will be.
Shannon Doherty from Beverly Hills 90210 is one. Baywatch's Pamela Anderson is another. Drew Barrymore is also in the frame, along with Erika Eleniak. Doctor Who fans aren't impressed.
They would kill the series.
Doctor Who's loyal fans are waiting eagerly for the latest news of the Spielberg series, but even his enemies want him to stay British. Mary Garn, GMTV.
I'd like the Baywatch girls on, because it would really take your eyes off the wobbly scenery, really.
Yes.
John Leakley, a staff writer at Universal Television who didn't have much else to do, was put on to making a pitch for the show. He seemed to be interested in the unit military aspect, and a lot of his ideas revolved around World War II. What he created is what is now known as the Leakley Bible. A 46-page document, it is written from the perspective of Barusa, the Doctor's teacher and grandfather in this. It tells of aspects of the show such as the TARDIS and Gallifrey. In fact, it gets deep into Gallifreyan history, writing that the Doctor and the Master are brothers and the sons of the lost explorer Ulysses, and are due to inherit the Sash of Rassilon. But the Doctor, being half human, gives the Master a claim to the Sash, and well, to depict the Master in this, they use an image of the Valiard, so I mean... It had description of Daleks, which are now these sort of floating spider-like beings that can open up to reveal a person inside. A test animation of this was made and yeah, it looks awful. There's a list of potential story ideas largely taken from existing serials from the classic series, but altered for American audiences. Painfully in this, the Cybermen are now the Cybes and are described as being vain pirates, with their vanity being their downfall. How much further from the Cybermen could you get? The biggest issue with Leakley's pictures was that they were basically Space Indiana Jones, a typecast Spielberg was trying to get away from at the time, making the Oscar-winning Schindler's List while this was going on. Seeing this spooked him and gave him doubts about whether he was being used. Leakley was fired and replaced by Robert De Laurentiis, who after a couple of failed pitches was replaced by Matthew Jacobs, whose take on his script was to ask, "Doctor, who am I?" CBS had passed on the offer to produce a 2-hour pilot followed by 6 episodes, and instead it moved to Fox, who offered a 90-minute backdoor pilot. Fox had been a home to the popular X-Files and wanted something to compete with the other networks, more akin to Star Trek The Next Generation and Deep Space Nine that had both been very popular. After a rigorous audition process that included many names considered for the lead role, including the likes of Peter Capaldi and Christopher Eccleston, with Liam Cunningham being a strong contender at one point, the role went to Paul McGann. One of the McGann brothers, most well known for his role in the hilarious With Nail and I,
We've gone on holiday by mistake!
and recent appearance in Alien 3, he had always been the favourite.
The Master. My brother. Why didn't you tell me?
An agreement was made between BBC Drama, represented by executive producer Joe Wright, Fox Television, represented by executive producer Alex Beaton, and Universal Television. Paul McGann was announced as the 8th Doctor in January 1996. Noticeably, Amblin was absent from this agreement, having decided to leave the project. This was a fact Seagal decided to keep hidden from the other partners until the production was underway. Filmed in Vancouver, Canada, but set in San Francisco, this three-way agreement started to have troubles, as each party had their fingers in the pie. While they were happy to have a previous Doctor regenerate into McGann, they thought it would be better for it to be Tom Baker, as he was more popular than Sylvester McCoy, who was still associated with the show's downfall. It had to be explained to them why it had to be McCoy in order for it to be a continuation, which kind of shows the understanding of the show the ones making it had. They had constant disagreements and negotiations about things.
We were still struggling to find something everybody could agree on while we were in Vancouver. We need a big fight for the end in the cloister room. And I'm going, a big fight in the cloister room? But they were going, yes, it's got to be massive with people almost dying. Okay. But a cloister room is a very small room at the back of the church where people... No, it's not.
The compromise for having a British Doctor for the Americans was to have a big name as the Master. Christopher Lee was considered but deemed too expensive, so they went for Oscar nominee and brother of Julia Roberts, the most highly paid actress of the time. Tennessee-born Eric Roberts was cast as the Master. He ended up costing more than Lee would have. The one thing that they could agree on was hiring Jeffrey Sachs to direct. The budget came to $5 million, the biggest budget ever for a TV movie at the time, with $1 million being spent on the TARDIS set alone, with the intention of it being reused. And it must be said that this design is amazing. While noticeably darker than the classic design, it's much more spacious, and with its furniture feels a lot more lived in, the mixture of living space and workspace being like out of Frankenstein's lab. The gothic styling of it, even with bats flying around, giving it an aged Victorian feel that it is out of its time. While this was the revival fans had hoped for and more, there wasn't much hype around it, as you'd expect. There had been so many rumours and discussions and failed announcements of returns that it was hard to believe anything would come of it. The VHS range was put on hold not to affect sales of the movie's VHS, which went on sale a few days before broadcast. I know that's just how it worked in those days. And on the 14th of May in the US and the 27th of May in the UK, the Doctor Who TV movie was broadcast. We open with this quite atmospheric intro. Over CGI planets, something unthinkable in the classic era, Paul McGann narrates to us that the Master has been put on trial for his crimes by the Daleks on Skaro, who seem to have been sucking on helium. Yeah, we already know this hasn't paid attention to the original show. A brief appearance by Gordon Tipple as the Master, and we go into this epic opening theme. With a grand orchestra, the power of this theme is immense. This truly is Doctor Who on an epic scale. John Debney provided the music for the movie and gave us not only a great soundtrack but one of the very best theme tunes. Aided by its budget, it was truly something to behold. We then get into the movie and it's the 7th Doctor transporting the Master, who escapes in the form of a goosenake. Of the 89 minutes of this movie, more than 20 minutes are spent with the 7th Doctor. In hindsight, this only took away from time we would get with the new 8th Doctor, that we really should have jumped straight into at the start. While McCoy was more than happy for the money and made a video diary for BBV called Bidding Adieu, he admits that they should have returned to him later. As such, it takes a while for the movie to truly get going. The Doctor lands in America and is instantly gunned down by a gang turf war, a comment on America's gang crime that plagued the 90s. He's taken to a hospital where the ambulance driver comments,
"Is he rich? That's where we're going. He better be rich."
And then under the operating table he gets an unnecessary procedure just to show off to investors, which, being an alien, causes his death.
I can't get it out of him!
Base, he's flatlining!
The probe snapped!
This could not be more of a condemnation on America's atrocious privatised healthcare system, something they still refuse to fix to this day. We are then introduced to Dr. Grace Holloway, played by Daphne Ashbrook, the surgeon who operates on him while still wearing her opera dress. The Doctor dies under her care to Madame Butterfly. The hospital refuses to accept the existence of this John Doe that could affect their records. His scans are burnt. The only survivor of the shooting, Chang Li, played by Yi-Ji Tisu, runs off with his belongings, and Grace resigns in protest. Oh, and the body has got up and walked away with a new face. Intercut with 1931's Frankenstein as he regenerates. While there are lightning effects to cover it up, it's a simple fade transition, made awkward by the fact McCoy and McGann couldn't pull the same faces. He punches a door off, and after this quite funny moment with the mortician, he wanders around the abandoned wing of the hospital in only robes, akin to the Shroud of Turin. This is where Sachs really shows off his directing skills, in the Doctor's haze as he wanders the hospital. The lighting and framing and wide-angle lens, it all creates this confused yet beautiful atmosphere. It really must be said that regardless of your view on the movie, it is probably the best Doctor has ever looked from a directing point of view, though how much of that was down to the budget. At the same time, the Goosenake Master enters the body of Bruce, played by Eric Roberts, and takes him over, becoming the new Master. In the sunglasses and leather jackets, Roberts plays the Master like a Terminator parody.
"I had a bad night."
I'll be back.
Which I guess goes with the campiness, but not the right sort of campiness. His portrayal of the Master is rather just over the top.
I always dress for the occasion.
After stealing a Billy the Kid Halloween costume, giving him a classic Edwardian look, which actually really suited him with the deep green velvet, the Doctor meets Grace and manages to convince her that he's the same man by pulling the probe out of his gut. Meanwhile, the Master employs the help of Chang by claiming the Doctor is the evil one and is stealing his regenerations, offering him gold dust in return for his help. Having just walked into the TARDIS, he's probably susceptible to believing anything. At Grace's house, which has been emptied by her now ex-boyfriend, definitely not saving on the set dressing budget, the Doctor uses his time there to remember who he is.
Lying back in the grass, it's a warm Gallifreyan night.
Gallifreyan?
Gallifrey! A meteor storm that the sky above us was dancing with lights.
Yes! What?
These shoes! They fit perfectly. Yes.
While the Master uses the Eye of Harmony that can only be operated by a human retinal scan to spy on the Doctor. This is when he makes the discovery.
The Doctor is half human. No wonder.
It's not clear whether the Master has these cat-like eyes because of the Goosenake stuff, or whether that's what Time Lord eyes are meant to look like, thus the Doctor has human eyes. I get the feeling they watched Survival and just thought that's how the Master's meant to look. Or, heck, maybe this Master just hasn't recovered from Survival. But the Doctor being half human, a line that's repeated,
I'm half human. On my mother's side.
Is an infamous line in Doctor Who history. It's been completely ignored in any future media since, or if it has been addressed, it's been tried to be explained as a one-off or a brief thing. This stank of trying to turn a Doctor into Spock, or a belief that audiences wouldn't find him relatable if he wasn't at least partially human. But to anyone who watched the original series at all, this line was frankly offensive. After first viewing, most people were usually in denial about it being there, but we just have to accept that yes, this was said, and yes, we can just ignore it and move on. It's coming to New Year's 2000, oh yeah, this is set in 1999, and the Master is distorting the timeline so much that there are freak storms and the Doctor can walk through glass. To fix the TARDIS, he needs a part of an atomic clock. Hey, look, there's one in San Francisco. He gets into a police bike for the ambulance chase with the Master while Grace keeps giving a load of quips. It's like they filmed a few and then decided to put all of them in. It's really quite annoying when you realise.
Maybe I should have kept the gun!
What?
Look! Not again! Great! I finally made the right guy who's from another planet! Doctor?
Yes?
I only have one life! Can you remember that? Then you know what's gonna happen to me?
You don't want to know!
Right! You can't not tell me!
Grace!
They get past the guards that the Master has gooed on and get the circuit. They escape running hand in hand and descend down on a fire hose. This is definitely the dashing romantic Doctor. They get back to the TARDIS, but Grace has some Master goo on her and gets possessed. We also get this funny, if completely unnecessary moment. The Doctor is chained up in the cloister room and the Master is going to steal his body and take his regenerations. He snaps Chang's neck and throws Grace off from the balcony as she tries to rescue the Doctor. She had already managed to mend the TARDIS by thinking alarm clock, whatever that means.
Alarm clock! Think alarm clock!
And the Master falls into the Eye of Harmony. There's then some beautiful imagery as the TARDIS resurrects Grace and Chang, even if this ability does make you completely rethink the show. The Doctor lets Chang run off with the gold. It's debated whether or not he counts as a companion, having spent almost the entire movie as a secondary villain. But the Doctor and Grace kiss under New Year's fireworks. Oh yeah, this Doctor kisses Grace a few times.
Now do that again.
Which, while we're used to now, that was something else fans found offensive at the time. He offers her to come with him, but she declines. Again, fans thought the idea of turning down a trip in a TARDIS stupid, but again, that just makes sense nowadays. And thus the Doctor flies away to his next adventure.
Oh no, not again!
It must be said, Paul McGann was fantastic as the Doctor and had real potential to become one of the Doctors. Back to jelly babies and sonic screwdrivers, which McCoy used backwards by the way. He'd never used it before. This Doctor also does the kissing and threatens someone with a gun.
Stand aside before I shoot myself.
Don't be a fool.
Could you excuse me, please?
So there are aspects the religious sorts of fans didn't appreciate, but with his Edwardian cloak and mane of long hair, that's a wig by the way, he has this gentlemanly yet quirky British charm, something the Americans seem to love, and was very much the romantic of the Doctors. And fans couldn't wait to see what would be next.
Hundreds of fans of the original series queued for hours in London's Piccadilly for a chance to see a special preview of the new film. Most seemed to approve of the Doctor's latest incarnation.
McGann is an inspired choice. He's got these incredible staring eyes, and he can act like Billy-O.
The movie achieved 9 million viewers in the UK, a respectable figure that certainly would have warranted a season. The UK broadcast had to be censored though. Some of the surgery scenes were cut down, but the gunfight that killed the Seventh Doctor had to be cut due to the tragic Dunblane school shooting shortly before. It also carried a tribute to John Pertwee. However, it was the American audiences that mattered this time. Broadcast on the Labour Day weekend, that's a bank holiday they have, it unfortunately broadcast against an episode of Roseanne following a cliffhanger ending to the wedding episode the previous week. One of the most popular shows of the time, this attracted 27 million viewers. Doctor Who couldn't compete and got only 5 million viewers, one per every $1 spent. It was a flop. The full schedules had already been published by the time of the UK broadcast over a week later, so UK viewers knew it wouldn't be going to series. Though that may never have actually been the plan. McGann's contract had the option for 6 further TV movies, not a series. However, Universal never took that option and the movie stood alone. It's a tragedy that we never got to see more of the 8th Doctor, but it may be a blessing in disguise. While Leakley was gone, aspects such as the Doctor and the Master being brothers and the descendants of Rassilon may have been explored had the Americans kept going, which would have just been terrible. Count ourselves lucky we only got the half-human line. But still, we can only dream of what this big-budget American Doctor Who would have been like, with its gorgeous score and fantastic directing, as well as the perfect actor in the lead. This X-Files-esque era of the show is one we'll never get to see any more of than this brief glimpse. Unfortunately, after 7 years of negotiations that went as high as Steven Spielberg and as low as Coast to Coast, with $5 million down the can, the Doctor Who reboot was a failure, and thus, the real wilderness years began.
It's so much easier to plan for once you've been there. Of course, it helps to have one of these, a Virillion time transformer. The next best thing is a telephone number which will help you to start a savings plan for the 21st century. Take it from a Time Lord. However you plan to spend your future, plan on having something to spend.